guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to make some coasters. We're going to make some autumn coasters. This being the last video of the series, I wanted to do something that kind of you could make as a set, right? So it's going to go alongside of the autumn tray that I had on Monday's video, but the technique that we're using is going to be different. Instead of painting on the resin like we did on Monday, we're actually going to paint on this silicone itself. It's a whole nother process. Let me tell you guys, this video almost did not happen. The struggle was real from beginning to end with this project, and I almost said the hell with it several times. But got there in the end eventually, but like I said, there was many problems along the way. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to outline the pumpkin and acorns, and I'm making 4 coasters, 2 pumpkin, 2 acorn. The leaves, because of the method in which I'm doing it this time, I'm not going to use the actual leaf cutout. I got, if you saw in the beginning, those little, just the leaves from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use those instead. So painting on silicone is, it's challenging to say the least. So when you do it, kind of like how when we were painting on the actual resin, you have to kind of like blob it on. You can't just do nice pretty strokes. You've got to apply it heavily. The silicone does kind of repel the acrylic paint for whatever reason. And you're going to have to do several coats. And let it dry completely in between each one, because if you don't, when you put your brush on there, it just like pulls it right back up. So all I'm doing right now is going over the stem. I'm kind of just re-outlining it again, filling it in, getting that first coat on there, flipping it over to make sure that I can see, because I outlined it in orange, all just one color. I don't want the orange to go through, and you'll be able to see that first because I applied that down first, and then I went over with the brown, because you have to remember when we're doing it like this, the bottom that we're painting on is going to be the top of the coaster. So any color that I have laid down first, which is why I'm going through and erasing it and kind of repainting it back on, is going to be the color that we see. So it's not like when we painted on the acrylic and what we're looking at is the top. It's not like whatever I applied on top is going to cover up any mistakes or whatever. We're going to see what's underneath. So keep that in mind. Now I'm just going through, and you can see I'm just blobbing it on. So I used the Essentials acrylic paints. They're a thicker paint, right? Mix my own orange. But I also, in this, mixed a little bit of that orange, that bright orange color that I bought from the dollar store several videos back. And I'm wondering if this is part of the problem, because later on when I demold these, even though I let the paint dry for like 48 hours afterwards, it's still like it rubbed off of the top of the coaster. Like there's no reason why it should be rubbing off. So I'm wondering if that's like the brand or the type of paint that you use has an effect on how it turns out. And the Dollar Tree ones, I'm honestly gonna say, like, where I'm all about saving a buck where I can, I don't necessarily recommend these paints. Not for this type of work anyway. Now, they may be great for if you're painting ceramics or whatever, but for resin, I don't think they're a good fit. They're too watery, they're too, I don't know. I feel like anywhere I used them, the paint pulled off so much easier. And because it's a thinner paint, even when I mixed it with my thicker paints, they're garbage. Don't buy them for this. There's just certain things that I feel like are okay to use in resin, even though resin is, so versatile and you can put almost anything in it, use it with it, whatever. There's just certain things that not so much. That paint is one of them. Don't recommend it whatsoever. So now what I'm doing is I'm just I realized that because again, guys, I can't draw, that the line on my pumpkin was kind of wonky and funky and whatever. So I just took a cotton bud and kind of cleaned it up and redid that portion of the line. So now I'm going with the acorns and I'm going to do that same exact thing. I am going to just paint it on, get my lines right, get the colors right on how I want it, um, and then let it dry. So all in all, in hindsight, I feel like the process of doing it this way is probably longer than when I did the tray and just painted on top. Um, and then you have to think backwards too, which kind of makes it a little bit more difficult um, as well. Um, anyway, as I finish up the acorns, I'm just gonna have a little music going on, and then we'll get to the next part where we get the leaves ready to go as these are drying. All right, so that was that. That's part is finally done. Now on to the leaves. So because they are still a fabric, I want to seal them to try and avoid getting air bubbles in. I also want them to match the leaves that I handed on the tray. So I also need to add that glitter to like the veins and stuff like that. So I'm going over them right now with the Duraclear gloss varnish, and then I'm going to add in the colors of the glitter to highlight those areas on the veins to make them all cohesive with the tray. So these particular leaves kind of have lines already drawn on them. So I'm kind of just going along with that line, adding some in where I feel like maybe it needs a little bit more. And they also have like a very, very, very thin wire. And they kind of, I don't know if you can see like the one that I'm working on now, they kind of do like have like an indentation in them, which I didn't necessarily think about before putting them into the resin, which would have caused an issue on its own before I put the Duraclear on it. The Duraclear just made it that much more crunchier, I guess, and less pliable for me to be able to push the air out later on after they dry. So that's a whole nother issue in its own. So right now we're just finishing up the glitter. Then we're gonna let this dry. Like I said, a good 48 hours for the paint for these two. I mean, they turn out beautiful. The leaves look great. I just didn't think about all of these things beforehand. But, we learn from our fails, right? From our mistakes and all that fun stuff, even though it's irritating as hell in the moment. So, what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to figure out the placement of the leaves. And as I'm doing this, this is where I realize that it's going to be an issue. The size of the leaves, and then I'm worried that the air is going to get trapped under it, and then there's not going to be any resin in between the paint and where the leaves are. So I decide that cutting some of them, especially on the one that has the full acorn and the full pumpkin, may be a better option to get that resin under there and not have any issues with it. Um, the other two, I just kind of gotta keep them whole because now you can see the whole thing. So I'm cutting them up. I'm putting them where I think that they should go, and then it's going to be time to pour the first little bit of clear resin. Now, when I do this, I don't want a lot. I don't want the leaves to float. I need them to kind of stay, and I'm doing it for two reasons. One is I need that clear between the like where I painted it and the leaves, because if I put the color on that's going to be the same background as the tray, then you're not going to be able to see the leaves. They're just going to get lost in there. So I've got to do this clear layer first so that you could see everything that I need to see up front, and then do the colors afterwards. So it's just a little bit. So my first thought was, okay, I'll apply resin to the bottom side of the leaf, and this way it'll be covered and maybe I won't have any issues with the air bubbles. Maybe. As I'm pushing down, I realize this leaf, it's not gonna stay. I get one side down, I get all the air pushed out, and then the other side pops up. And this is an issue that I have throughout this entire process here. Like, it is so frustrating. I like the struggle, I'm not kidding, the struggle was real in this entire freaking project. Um, so then I do the smaller ones, and they're a little bit easier to maneuver. When I was cutting them, I tried to make it so that I kind of cut where the main indentation of the leaf was, so that I didn't have as much of an issue, because these molds aren't very deep. Like, I can only put a little bit of resin in there, and I still need to be able to do the puddle pour for those colors afterwards. Um, so yeah, it's a whole process, and I spent a lot of time fighting with these leaves to get them down. Like, just to give you an example, as long as you've been watching this is times 10. Like, that's how long it took me, and that's not counting the amount of time that I actually had to cut out of this video too. I did go around with my dotting tool around the edges to try and get any bubbles out, hitting it with the heat gun, trying to get it just to, I don't know, make my resin thinner so that it gets up underneath there. So here we are 24 hours later. The clear resin's dry. Now I'm just mixing in those colors that I used in the tray to do the puddle pour on the background, mixing up the green, mixing up the glitter, and then the copper. And then we're gonna just pour the rest of it in and keep fingers crossed. Now, the issue with the clear and only being able to use a little bit and those leaves still floating up is I don't have a flat surface now. It's all bumpy from the leaves. So the puddle pour where, it should push it out and be all nice and pretty and then come back in with striations. It doesn't happen, especially in that first one that I poured. There's a massive, you can see how it's not flowing right. It's looking all dumb. And I at this point it is what it is, and it's kind of going to ruin the design. And then there's the whole, I put glitter in it, which I have to put glitter in it again for this, but the problem being I know that that glitter is going to sink, but I don't want it to sink because if it sinks, then you're not going to be able to see any of the colors because when I did the tray, I did it opposite, right? So I could pick which side I wanted to use. Now I'm stuck with however this turns out. So here we are 24 hours later, and it's time to demold and see how these turned out. Um, we did have some sinkage of glitter. It's not as horrible. I did omit the big chunky glitter because I knew all those big chunks would fall, and there was just no reason to put it in there. It's a little bit more glittery than what I wanted. Don't like how the paint turned out on these, especially not on that one at all. Like, it's just, ugh. I words can't even explain how, like, upset I am with this entire project. Um, like, they're pretty, but I think it would have been better if I had just done it the way that I did the tray. But it is what it is, and that me feeling that, I can feel the paint on there. Like, it's not a smooth surface like it should be if the resin picks it up, how it picks up mica powders and all the other stuff that it picks up. It just did not pick up that paint well at all. And I feel like it left really weird colorations in the brown for some reason. Um, but we're gonna still do the highlights with the glitter, like the outline and all of that good stuff to try and, bring it back to life again, which it does work. Um, but, with that comes a whole new set of problems, such as me not mixing the right glitters to do the outlines so they don't match exactly as they should. Um, I put way too much gold in where I had more brown in the tray. I mean, it still looks cohesive. It still matches if you're not paying that much close attention to it. Um, but yeah, it's just the whole thing, and the lines just didn't want to work. Like, it was a thing. And then when I was doing the outlines, I kept having to wipe them off. Like, the lines were not happening. They were not happening this time. Especially with those godforsaken pumpkins. Like, the lines in the middle, where they show like the pretty curvatures of the pumpkins. Nope. Nope, not happening whatsoever. And this is where I realized, oh my god, the paint is like wiping off. So now I can't even wipe this off right because if I do, I'm gonna wipe off all the paint. And that's a whole nother issue on its own. And I didn't want to have to do this paint again. Like, I just did not want to have to do this. So, all in all, I learned that I think where I really, really do enjoy painting on resin, I feel like um, I'd rather paint on the resin than paint on the actual mold itself. And the reason for this is because at least when you're painting on the resin, you can work your way up from the background, right? You don't have to think backwards about painting. Like, I'm not that great at painting to where I can paint and do the detail that I want doing it backwards. Um, I'd just rather work from the back to the front and do it like that, than the other way. So I finally get all the detail work done. Now it's time to get ready to put the glue down so that we can put a top coat on, right? I do let the them dry for 24 hours. It really doesn't take the DuraClear that long to dry. It's dry usually in like 30 minutes or so. But because I was putting it on thick and because I've had nothing but issues so far, I want to make sure that it's completely dry. So here we are 24 hours later. They still look really pretty. All in all, they still do look really beautiful. So now I'm just taking school glue and I am coating the back. I'm coating the sides because I have issues anytime I try to do a flood coat, especially on these coasters, um, to where it gets like stuck in the curvatures because it's a geode shape. It gets stuck in those curvatures and it never looks right. So I'm applying it along the sides too. Now, here's where I screw up yet again. As I'm doing this, I'm not paying attention to the fact that I have glue all over my hand. And said glue is getting all along the front side of the coaster where I already have the issues with the paint coming off and all this other stuff. And I also, when you do this, make sure, like I put plenty of glue on the back, but I did not put nearly enough glue on the sides around the edges of the coaster. Um, and here we go. This is the beginning of yet another issue. I was doing something else and I had already mixed my resin, was doing something else, lost track of time. As I'm doing this top coat, my resin is starting to go off. So it's getting really thick. Like I don't have much longer. So now I'm trying to rush it. It's flowing all down the edges. As you can see on the one that I'm working with now, there's already a puddle forming. It leaked on every single one. Usually I'm really good about taking it to the edge and it staying there. It didn't want to have any part of that this time at all. It just wanted to go wherever it wanted to go and make a huge mess everywhere. Get stuck on the sides where I didn't put enough glue down and just make my life that much harder. Um, and you'll see, like, I cut out a lot of the struggle with this, but you can see me struggling to get it off because I didn't put enough on there. And then because not only that was it the fact that I didn't put enough on there, I didn't put enough on there and I got it all over the tops of it. So before I had put down the top coat, I had to try and clean up all the glue that got all over there from my hands being having glue on them, which caused an issue in itself and it loosened some of the glue along the edges. But I thought it'll be okay. It'll be fine. I never or rarely does it ever run over when I'm doing this because I'm so careful about it. It'll be okay. Those few pieces will be fine. Not so much. Not at all. Not today, not with this project. Um so yeah, this was it it was a patience tester from start to finish in this project. All in all, everything turns out beautiful. There is some sanding that I will have to do just on one of these that it got kind of bad and chunky where it flowed over the edge. But I did get it in the end finally, and I think they look gorgeous. So it probably took me all in all a good 30 minutes or so, maybe even longer, to get the freaking glue off of the back of these, which is ridiculous. And by no means it is through no fault of the glue. It is all 100% on me. Um yeah, it was a real fun project, this one. And I have never been happier to say I am very glad that it is over. Um, that being said, this was the last in our autumn series, and beginning on Monday, we start in Halloween. And I've got some really cool projects that have not been as much of a struggle as this coming up. I hope you guys will tune in to see them. I appreciate you guys a lot. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. I'm really looking forward to the upcoming stuff. I love hearing from you guys. If there's anything that you would like to see, let me know. Just drop me a line in the comment section and I will see what I can do. Anyway, if you've made it this far, I congratulate you. We are nearly 26 minutes in, and this is by far my longest video. My most disastrous video. But anyway, guys, I've got some glamour shots coming up of the entire set together, so stay tuned to see that. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Love you guys. Bye.